Welcome to this Heartfulness Wellness webinar series, which we've been conducting over the past 3 to 4 months. And as we are all aware, this pandemic keeps us on our toes, and it's changing the way we think, changing the way we live. There is times of fear, there is times of despair. Then we start feeling good that it's going down, the numbers go down, and suddenly the numbers come up again. So lockdown, no lockdown, you can move out, you can't move out. So people are really confused how to deal with this situation. And on a daily basis, as we doctors face, that if we have patients who have issues, are very worried to come to a hospital to see a doctor or go to their clinic to see them for the fear of either getting a virus or succumbing to this problem. And they don't realize that the bigger problem they face tends to get overlooked or ignored. And the major problem, as we all aware, in India, the number one killer is after infectious diseases is coronary artery disease or ischemic heart disease, which is called heart diseases. And the precursor to these diseases has been a major problem, a disease called diabetes, which is so innocuous and it is so unrecognized and not being explored to the extent that people really don't realize that how important diabetes is and how prevention and control of diabetes can prevent these complications. And in the present scenario, as I'm aware that people are homebound, they're not monitoring their sugars, they're getting into lots of problems with sugars. And also India is the largest, probably will be the largest capital having the maximum number of diabetics in the world. And I'm told 50% of our population are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. And today to discuss this, I have a very close friend and a colleague, Dr. Neeta Deshpande. She's had a lot of work done on this subject, mainly on treatment, but more importantly, she has a huge work on reversing diabetes, getting people free from their diabetes with lots of tips and tricks. Neeta is from JNMC Belgaum. She has multiple publications to her credit, and she's a prolific speaker. I will hand over the session to Neeta, and after that, we'll have a tete-a-tete how to go about solving this problem and health in general during these times. Hello, Neeta.
Hi, Haresh. Thank you for that warm introduction. And yes, you're very right. People are very confused, very depressed about what is happening in the world today. These are absolutely unprecedented times, and many people don't know how to grapple with this situation. And because of this coronavirus, a lot many other chronic diseases have actually gone to the back burner, and people have not been coming to the hospitals and clinics to seek help for all those other things. But doesn't mean that those things are going away. So you know that chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes, etc., need attention on a regular basis, and the follow-ups are not happening. But it's good to know what one can do in this situation, not only for diabetes and heart disease, but in general, how one can maintain one's health and be fit in these circumstances, so you can at least build up your immunity and ward off something like the corona. And I think, Haresh, that is the most important thing for us to understand, that we remain fit both physically and mentally, so that we do not have, even if we do get the coronavirus, we can still deal with it and come out of it victorious. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share a couple of slides and, to kind of set the ball rolling, where I talk to you a little about the coronavirus, a little about diabetes, a little about general health, what we can do, and then we can, have a nice discussion, Haresh, for the benefit of our viewers. So I shall start sharing my screen at this point. Yeah, is it visible?
Yep.
Oh,
perfectly visible.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about, this is the coronavirus. It looks very beautiful in terms of colors and, all those things, but you know how ominous it is actually. And I'm going to talk to you a little about the virus and what you can do. You need not be scared. You only need to be aware. That is what I think the tagline should be. And everyone knows the mode of transmission. All of you have been reading it in the media, on WhatsApp, and on the internet, and how it is transmitted and how you're supposed to take care. Please do not take that lightly. One has to take care. If you take care, then you need not be scared. So all of this has to be known by the general public. Today, this is no more scientific knowledge. This is common general knowledge which everyone needs to know. We all know that these are the clinical symptoms, and the first two are the most important actually: fever and fatigue. Okay, so fatigue is tiredness, and the tiredness that you're seeing in the corona, in COVID-19, is far, far more than the tiredness that you see in the flu. So if you're getting unusually tired and you also have fever, probably you are getting it. There's no need to be worried, but you need to see your doctor. And if you have shortness of breath, you definitely need to go into the hospital and probably get admitted so that you don't get worse. So body ache, fatigue, fever, these are the three main things, and dry cough. What is being seen is that there's not too much of phlegm in the COVID-19, pneumonia or the COVID-19 virus infection. You get a dry cough and probably a little bit of throat irritation is what you get. You do not get too much of sputum or a runny nose like in other viral infections. So fever, fatigue, dry cough, these are the symptoms to watch out for. And if you get shortness of breath, you surely need to get into a hospital. Everyone is in varying degrees of lockdown. What happens? We are not used to sitting at home. We are basically social animals, and it can get to us that we have no interaction, which we are really used to. So what happens is there is boredom. There is stress about the pandemic. Every day you have nothing else to do, so you keep reading, and what you read is about the pandemic, about people dying, about so many people getting infected. And then there are economic issues. Obviously, everyone is facing some kind of an economic crackdown, and that can stress you out further. And because of this, the stress leads to sleep disturbances, and this worsens the whole situation, and unfortunately leads to increased food intake. Everyone is at home, there is easy accessibility, there is boredom, and there is stress. This is a perfect recipe for food cravings, and this becomes a dangerous vicious cycle. And believe me, overeating always happens with comfort foods, food that give you the maximum pleasure, and that is usually high in carbohydrates. And that is not good for anyone. It's bad for diabetics, but it's not good for anyone else who's not diabetic either. And the carbohydrate cravings are real because carbohydrate rich foods are the ones that give you the maximum satisfaction. They are actually like a self-medication, anti-stressing, but they're not, they can do harms in other ways. What other things can happen? You tend to eat a lot of food which is high in carbohydrates, but which is very low in nutrition. So vitamin E, vitamin C, beta carotene, these are the things that help you to raise your immunity. And these kind of foods are typically lacking in all these immunity boosters, and hence you become more susceptible to the viral infections. You should know that vegetables supplying all these vitamins and minerals, they can boost immune function. But the problem is that in the lockdown period, even whatever, even if it's a relaxed lockdown, vegetables are hard to come by. I know that, but you must try whatever best you can. So healthy nutrition is very, very important, especially if you're diabetic. There is something called a glycemic index, which is the capacity of any food to raise the blood sugars. So given that if you are diabetic, and even if you're obese, what you should do is you should give priority to foods that have got a least capacity to increase your blood sugars. Fried foods, I know monsoons are out and bhajia seem very tempting, but you must make sure that you do not gorge too much on these fried foods, and you must limit consumption of foods that are high in sugar and carbohydrates. If you are a non-veg eater, choose lean protein and eat a lot of green leafy vegetables. Eat fruits sparingly. The reason I say this is fruits can also raise your blood sugars, and if someone is looking to lose weight, fruit can also raise your, increase your weight. So it's wiser to go for vegetables rather than fruits. All of us know, from east to west, north to south, everybody in India eats high carb food almost to the tune of 70%. You should be somewhere at 50%. And if you're looking to lose weight or reduce your blood sugars, you should be even lower than 50%. But we eat a lot of carbohydrates. It's 64 to 70% of our meal is carbohydrate. And in the lockdown, this has increased further, and everyone is trying their hand at different things because it's a newfound hobby or a newfound pleasure that even men are cooking so much, and they're doing a good job. I agree with that. But this should be a rarity. I think everyone is now, quite satisfied with what they've been doing. So
The internet is a little bit.
Okay. Are you able to hear me though?
Now I could, yeah.
Yeah.
It paused
Okay.
for a minute. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So as I said, this is something that we're all looking at in the lockdown, and because of boredom, we are trying our hand at different things. But please be careful and make sure that even if you have to eat these kind of things, have portion control. Eat as little as you can. Okay. So this is not portion control, what you're seeing here. This is a lot of food at one time. They are small katoris, but there are many katoris, so it's a huge portion. This is more like portion control. Okay. And you can see that the content also varies, right? And the portion sizes are also smaller. So this is what I mean. So you can make food interesting, and you can reduce your portions as well. This is actually the healthy eating plate. You don't really have to sit and count your calories. What you need to do is, if you have a plate, you divide it like this. Vegetables should have almost this much, of a plate. So this is a visual thing for you to see. And whole grains, although they are healthy, you can only have 1/4 of your plate being occupied by whole grains. So here comes all your chapati, your rice, your rotis, and everything is grain. And that is just 1/4 of your plate. So please remember that whole grains are good, but the portion control is key. And healthy proteins is another 1/4, but vegetables, you see, has the highest. It is the highest. You can even go, even if you go without fruits, your entire half plate can be vegetables, and you can be sure you won't put on weight and your sugars will not go high. All your doodh, dahi, and other dairy products are in this little glass out here. They are not even in your main plate, and maybe we can take this up during the discussion, where I can explain it even better. So this is the healthy eating plate, and this should be the rough distribution of the kinds of food that you eat. I'm not going to go into the details of beta carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E. You can look this up, but these are the important immune boosters which you should try to consume, that too in a natural way. This is a slide I want to dwell upon a little bit. Vitamin D is not actually a vitamin. It is a hormone that is very important for many functions in the body, and it is also an immune booster. And unfortunately, Indians are very deficient in vitamin D, and you might need supplementation. So you might want to ask your doctor how to supplement it. Zinc was supposed to have actually, inhibited the SARS virus, and the coronavirus that we have now, COVID-19, is also a similar kind of virus. And they say that zinc can help you to boost your immunity. And these are the common foods that you see on the screen that can actually be useful. All right. Exercise at home is very important. I know you cannot go to a gym. Many of you may not have access to clean air and empty spaces, especially if you're in a metro. But exercising at home is a reality, is a possibility, and it is mandatory. You have to do some kind of exercise at home. Increasing physical activity in general is very good. If you're cooking, cleaning, etc., that's physical activity. But exercise is something where your heart rate works at a particular point, at which time you start to burn fat. And aerobic exercise can be done at home in the form of spot walking, spot jogging, or if you have an exercise bicycle, you can do that. Or you can climb stairs. If you have a stepper at home, you can do that. Or you can join a Zoom online dance class if you like. That's a good aerobic exercise, but you have to do that. Secondly, you must try and do some resistance exercise. Resistance exercise is weights. You can use free weights if you have dumbbells at home, or you can use your own body weight as the weight and do squats, lunges. You can do abs, you can do a bench press. Okay, so that is all resistance exercise. Of course, you can do yoga, which is flexibility and stretching exercises, but please keep some time aside for that. Meditation, again, an important thing in these stressful times. I am sure Haresh is going to speak a little more about the techniques or probably the importance of doing meditation, but it is a de-stressor and it's a connection with your inner self, which is very, very important, especially in these times of boredom and stresses of different kinds. What about diabetes? Well, people with diabetes in general get more infections than the general population. And when they develop an illness such as the coronavirus or any other virus, it is harder to treat because the glucose levels start to fluctuate. Okay. The key important thing is to keep the blood sugar under control, because evidence tells us that diabetics may not be at more of a risk of getting the COVID-19, but if they do get it, it is more severe and it can be fatal. So the key important thing to remember is to keep blood sugar under control, regularly monitor your blood sugars, and if you have any kind of symptoms, please see your doctor or at least talk to him on the phone. Any infection is going to increase your blood sugar, get you dehydrated. Okay, your need for fluids may increase. So make sure you take care of all these particular things. Make sure you have a good supply of all your medication. In this period of different kinds of lockdown, different containment zones, you may not have access to your medication. Make sure you have enough stock. Make sure you have enough access to good food, quality food, nutritious food. And if your sugar drops suddenly, make sure you know how to correct that as well. Keep a regular schedule. Even if you are working from home, make sure that you have a proper timetable and get a good night's sleep. You must practice sick day rules. If you are sick, not just with the COVID-19, any kind of illness, have enough water, keep checking your glucose, your temperature. And if you're on insulin, there's something called ketone bodies, which you should monitor in the urine, and make sure you're in touch with your doctor. So remember one thing, the lockdown will be lifted, quarantine will go away, isolation will go away, you will have to go out in the world sometime, but unless you have a good control of your portion sizes, unless you are fit, unless you exercise, will you be able to lift your weight after the lockdown is lifted? So this is a nice cartoon I like to always tell. COVID-19 is gone out, but can you get out of your door? That is the important thing to remember. So this slide will tell you to keep fit and keep to a good schedule. These are some immunity boosters which you can do at home for whatever they are worth. We really don't know how much. There are no trials or there's no research, but you can try these immunity boosters at home. Please do not try any immunity boosters that are available in the market. We don't know their authenticity and we don't know their quality and efficacy. It's best that you do something at home, something like this, that might help you more. So test your blood sugars and blood pressure, check for complications, keep in touch with your doctor. Use this lockdown period to bring discipline into your life. Remember, you're not stuck at home, but you are safe at home. So do not go out unless it is absolutely necessary. Make use of teleconsultation services. This is the new normal. So do not feel that a teleconsultation does not give you the same feel as a proper consultation. You'll have to get used to it. Try to use these services more and more. So I will stop at this point, and I think Haresh, we can actually have a question and answer and a good discussion for our people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neeta. I mean, very lucid and well informing presentation, which in fact raises a lot of questions in my mind, and probably we can start discussing this for the benefit of the public.
Yeah.
So you said about diabetes and all these things. My biggest fear is that, of course, people will understand that they need to eat less and this and that, and stress is driving them to eat more. And so, first of all, let me ask you this. Suppose you are a diabetic. How often in these times should you change your schedule of checking your sugars, or should that remain the same? Or
well, if you're ill, of course, you follow the sick day rules and you check more frequently. If you are have always had good blood sugars, and if you are only on one or two oral drugs, your frequency of testing need not change. But if you are on insulin, you will probably have to check more often. And in any case, it is a good idea to check more often, because your schedule has changed, your activity has reduced. So your blood sugars are going to be a little different from what they have been in the past. So it's always wiser to check a little more frequently. And if you have a glucometer, that's the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
So yes, checking more frequently, I think, is key. It's
Yeah.
important.
Because the reason I asked you, because a couple of weeks back, we had a patient admitted with us who came with a stroke, like he had
Right.
paralysis.
Yeah.
And we sent him back thinking it is TIA. And he came back again with the same symptoms, and we found his sugar to be 40.
Right.
And
Right.
this
Right.
was
Right.
despite reducing his insulin to half.
Okay. So the important thing, another thing to remember is, because they've changed their food habits, there can be some very strange fluctuations in the blood sugar. The other thing is, typically many diabetic patients do not do their annual blood check. They only just keep on checking their sugars, and they're a little lazy about their annual blood checkup. That's why I put it in the slide, check for complications. If they do not do their creatinine values in time, they are probably in nephropathy, and that's when they start dropping sugars like this to 40 for no reason, we suspect that they have diabetic kidney disease, and it's very important to go and check that. And you will find that such people wouldn't have checked their sugars, or I mean their serum creatinine, which is a measure of the kidney function. They wouldn't have checked it for the last 1 or 2 years,
Right.
many a times, and that's important during these times. And why it is important is, if they're in their early stages of diabetic kidney disease, they can be very well managed at home with just a diet, and you don't want them to go to a situation where they need an ICU for diabetic complications in these COVID times.
Right. So, in fact, a very good point brought out about this kidney disease, which reduces the blood sugar. So, this patient, once we treated him with the glucose and all that, he was fine. And of course, he was a patient of kidney disease. He was aware, but he probably had modified his diet and didn't realize it. That's why I brought it up. So,
Yeah.
whenever you modify your diet, please be in touch with your doctor to tell him that this is
Yeah.
the diet you've modified. So, the
Yeah.
doctor can modify your diabetic medication, because that's very, very important.
Very important. Yeah.
And we have to get out of the fear that this pandemic means the doctor is not available, doesn't want to see us, doesn't want to take care of us. And that leads to a lot of fear. And this healthy food habits about carbohydrates, what you were talking about, is about
Yeah.
sugars, right? I mean, for a
Yeah.
common man, carbohydrates means sugars.
Not exactly. Carbohydrates are at least of two or three different kinds in layman's terms. One is all your cereal grains, that is rice, wheat, jowar, ragi. All these food grains that we talk about, they are all carbohydrates. All sugars are carbohydrates. Honey and jaggery are also carbohydrate. And vegetables are carbohydrate, but vegetables are the best kind of carbohydrate because they are very, very complex, very difficult to break down, and so they get absorbed in the body very, very slowly, because they also have a lot of fiber. So because of that, they are absorbed so slowly that they are the best carbohydrates to eat, because they are energy giving and they don't raise your blood sugar. But everything else, if you go beyond a certain limit, even wheat and all of these things are going to raise your blood sugars.
Right. So, I mean, of course, the people have to understand the difference between simple and complex sugars,
Right.
basically, so that
Right.
because people have this very vague concept, which you said you were going to discuss later, because I have found it a lot in the Western countries.
Yeah, I'll tell you a very
Sure.
easy way of identifying which carbohydrates raise your sugar and which don't. The
Right.
carbohydrates that you have to chew a lot, okay, carbohydrates which don't just melt in your mouth, they are the best kind of carbohydrates. So sugar melts in your mouth, pastry melts in your mouth, yeah, right? So anything that just melts in your mouth is refined carbs.
Right.
Anything that you have to chew a lot, those carbohydrates are good for you.
Yeah. So I was telling you about these Western countries, when I was studying there and I went there many a times, these people have this habit ki have juice. And they don't realize that juice is probably the main cause of adolescent or child obesity in the country.
Right. Right.
So can you throw some light on this? Because I want people to realize what juice is good for them, what juice is not good for them.
Yes. See, let me begin by saying that a lot of our food choices are influenced by the food lobby or the food industry. Okay. And there is a huge nexus between, in the West, I'm talking about, this is where it came from. There's a huge nexus between the sugar lobby, the food industry, and the American politicians. So, because of that, a lot of food which is not really healthy gets pushed into the market as healthy. And fruit juices is the prime one amongst them. So since fruits are supposed to be healthy, as a corollary, they said fruit juices are also healthy, not realizing that to make 1 glass of orange juice, you would require 4 oranges, even if you have to make it at home. Even if you don't buy the juice from outside and have to make it at home, if you have to have 1 glass of juice, you would use 4 or 5 oranges. And 4 or 5 oranges is not a good idea for anybody to have at one time. And to add to that, fruit juice has no fiber. So there's nothing to slow down the spike of blood sugar because there's no fiber. 4 to 5 oranges, say at one time, it's going to spike your blood sugar, it's going to increase your calories, and you're going to get overweight as well. So it's a myth. Fruit juices are a big no-no for anybody. They are not healthy. That myth has to be debunked. If you want to eat fruit, please eat the whole fruit with all its fiber, peel it and eat it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think that people need to realize juice healthy means it's vegetable juice, freshly squeezed vegetable juice, not freshly squeezed fruit juice.
Yeah.
Very important. And the other big problem I find is that cereals, they push cereals like crazy. And I think cereals probably cause the maximum
It's
rise in
exactly
sugar.
the same thing. The history goes back, and all these people who run Kellogg's and all these people, they all have huge connections, and they have pushed this into the market. And I'll tell you where this boom came from, Harish. This boom came from the time that the low in the 70s and 80s, there was a huge move to go low fat. That became the craze at that time. So low fat was supposed to be good for the heart, it was supposed to be good for the weight, it was supposed to be good for everything. And what was low fat replaced with?
Sugar.
Low fat was replaced with high carb. It had to be replaced with something. So you had low fat yogurt, you had low fat butter, and you had low fat everything, and it all got converted to high carb, refined carb, and that's where your Kellogg's cereal brand,
Yeah.
everything came in, and the story goes.
Yeah,
But now, yeah,
and they beautifully package it by saying no added sugar.
no added sugar, exactly. So there's no need to go for all that. It's very wise to have
That's
your
true.
eggs in the
Neeta,
morning, to have veggies in the morning.
yeah, true, true. So, Neeta, bringing to the fear of going to a doctor in these
Yeah,
times, and you must have also noticed, and I've also noticed in our practice, that
yeah.
people are either not going, hiding their symptoms at home, and not reaching the hospital.
Yes.
Neeta, can you hear me?
Uh,
So, and that has led to a sudden, yeah, you okay now? Can you hear me
yeah,
now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
So that has led to a sudden increase of heart disease, and probably heart disease and diabetes related admissions and death.
Yes.
So somehow we need to inform the people that they just don't need to avoid talking to a doctor or seeing a doctor, because this problem of diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure will
Yeah.
kill more than COVID per
Abs-
se.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
People need to be very aware that they cannot sit at home when they have symptoms just for fear of going to the hospital. They
right.
definitely need to understand that every little symptom needs attention, and you must at least telephone or do a teleconsult, talk to your doctor. He needs to see your face and, yeah, ask you a few questions, take your history properly, and if required, you must go to the hospital. So that there is no two ways about it. You cannot hide, because other diseases are also here to stay. So just because you don't want to get the corona, you cannot sit with a heart problem or there are so many people, I'm sure you must have seen, Haresh, who have had high blood pressures and they're not going to the hospital because it's so typically asymptomatic, no symptoms at all, and they have high blood pressure and they're not checking it. Many people don't keep a BP monitor also at home. And they've got high blood pressure and they're coming out with strokes and heart attacks.
That's what I was worried about, because initially when COVID started all over the world, the number of heart patients was going down. Everybody was wondering, is COVID heart protective? Because the numbers fell down drastically. Most of them fell down to 80% down and all that. And so there was a lot of research going on whether COVID is going to protect the heart. And then we realized that people were not going. Either they were having problems at home. Some of them were dying at home. Some of them were not leaving hospital. So the very important message here would be that don't ignore your other problems and be in touch with your doctor there and keep monitoring whatever he says. And as Neeta said, telemedicine is such a beautiful thing. You can probably get an ECG done locally and just WhatsApp it. Or transmit it to your doctor and he can guide you through this.
And on a lighter note, Haresh, since my clinic is open and I'm also doing teleconsults, I find teleconsults better because I'm able to see my patient's face. The body language is better. And if I can smile, the patient can smile and we can see each other. Whereas in the clinic, you have a mask, then you have a visor, and then you have to talk louder to be heard. You can't see the patient's face except for the eyes. It's not satisfying at all. In fact, this way we are better.
And they keep asking you, are you Neeta? Are you Neeta? Because they won't know, are you Neeta? True. So this stress that you were talking about in these situations, and we tend to eat more and more carbohydrates, probably because it's the sugar rush we get and we feel good about it. Now tell me, stress acts both ways. It can either make you eat a lot or it can make you not eat at all. So how do you deal with stress? What do you recommend to the people how do you deal with stress to reduce your problems of diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease? How do you tell them to deal with it? Because I'm sure that with lifestyle, you're a lifestyle doctor too, which I know about it. So what do you tell them to do?
See, one of the main important things for stress is because of fear. Fear brings about stress. So if you have clarity of mind that there is no fear, if corona has to come, it will come, but I will do what I can to prevent it. I will take my precautions. If I'm able to do all those things properly, you need not fear. And the fear dispelling of the fear comes from the knowledge. So you have to have the proper knowledge from the proper sources, what COVID is all about, what do I do with my other chronic diseases, and I'm doing the best I can. So that is one way of reducing stress of one kind about your health. About the economic issues, well, that stress has to be reduced by training your mind that it's not going to matter so much. Money is not all that important in the face of what we are going through. The whole world is going through an economic crisis. So that kind of stress has to be relieved over there. And to talk over and above all of this kind of stress, if you have a good schedule, you do something like meditation and yoga, which will, dispel all of these things and help you deal with stress better, cope with stress better, because you are able to train your mind better. And you are, there is no escapism there, but there is facing the reality, the truth with a lot of equanimity. So that is the important thing that you can do and dispel this kind of stress. That is what I feel.
Yeah. So the fear probably comes because of so much of information overload we have from electronic media, and nobody shows the number of people recovering. Most of them are showing number of people dying. They get worried that they may be one of the person who might be figuring that percentage. And regarding economics, there's a beautiful thing you said. So you have to, during these times, realize, or people must have already realized, that their needs are so frugal. I mean, you don't need so much. I mean, it was all the time your wants to have more and more things that probably drove you through doing those things that you are doing to earn more and more. I agree, for a daily wage worker, it is difficult to live
I
in
agree.
time.
That is true. That is true.
But most of us have to go back from wants to needs. And the biggest, the easiest way to dispel fear is to face fear. People don't want to face fear, they want to run away from fear, and that makes them run
Yeah.
to these comfort foods and whatever you do. And so, do you think that anything helps them to dispel this fear besides getting the right knowledge? Because you can still get right knowledge and still be scared of getting it. So, yes,
Yes.
one you mentioned meditation, of course, that we'll discuss that later.
Yeah. The other thing is talking to the right people, because we are, isolated. We're sitting at home alone, and then we're brooding over it. The good thing to do would be to talk to the right kind of people. Some people may need even to talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and get their thoughts in order. But the other thing simply you can do is talk to a friend or talk to your doctor and be reassured. That is very important, because many times you brood, you read, and then you start extrapolating it to yourself, and that might just spiral out of control, lead to panic attacks or maybe depression even. It's good to talk to people, not people who will increase your stress, but people who will dispel your stress.
So, yeah, you brought a beautiful concept about being alone. We've had a webinar on this, and people need to understand the difference between lonely and being alone.
Being alone,
There
yeah.
are two different things.
Yes, you can be lonely in a crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the whole concept. They need to understand that they have to identify what they are and what is meaning of life during these times, because this is the best time to reflect on your values, on
Yeah.
your belief systems and your
Right.
relationships, because many of us have ignored our relationships in the search of economics and lots of other things. So you learn meaning of relationships, and of course the definition of health, that has to change, because
Yeah.
people have a different concept of definition of health. So do you have something to tell
Yeah,
them the definition of
yeah.
health?
The first part of what you said, Haresh, I agree that uh, I think it's a question of being comfortable with yourself. Then you can be alone. You have to start loving your own company, so to speak. So if you have to be alone, you have to start loving your own company, being comfortable being alone. That constant need for interaction, once it goes away, you become very comfortable being alone, and you actually start enjoying your own company. And that's with the help of books, your music, and just connecting with your inner self. That is one. Second thing, you asked about health. Well, health is, as the WHO has rightly said, health is not mere absence of disease. So health is a very positive state. So health is a positive state of mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. So all these three things have to be in a positive, in a positive way. You have to be healthy, not just I'm not sick, so I'm healthy. No. So it has to go more towards, it's not the absence of disease. It is actually being very, very healthy and positively healthy. A lot of it comes from the mind, according to me. We have so many patients who are very sick, but who are so positive about their health. They have the trust that things are going to get better, and they do get better. It's like laws of attraction. You believe something, that you're going to be well, you're going to be positive, you're going to be healthy, and you actually start being healthy. So probably there are those endorphins in your body that actually make you healthy. So it's physical, psychosomatic, as you know, that we speak about. So your physical being affects your mental health, and your mental being affects your physical health. So it's a two-way relationship.
Yeah, I know, because I agree with you. The health has so many aspects to it. People think health is only that I will look physically good, I'm going to be fit, I have muscles,
Yeah.
I'm thin. But they forget about the most important thing is their health contains mental health, it
Yeah.
contains social health, how you interact with people. It also
Right.
contains emotional health, how you deal with your emotions. And of course, as you mentioned, it contains spiritual health. So health has so many facets, and each of them are interconnected. So the one affects the other. So if you have a bad mental health, I doubt you can have a continuous physical health. There will be some time that this bad mental illness is also going to affect your physical health. And
True.
there is very clear understanding that if you have stress, as we mentioned, stress leads to release of bad hormones or excessive hormones which we don't need in
Yes.
that quantity. So, for example, there's a fight and flight response.
Yes.
So, whenever you're under stress, you want to react and your body secretes adrenaline or adrenaline, which is excellent for that moment. But if this continuously gets released with
Yeah.
continued stress, it leads to increased sugars, it leads to increased
Yeah.
blood pressure, increased heart diseases, sugar cravings, increased weight. So it's a vicious cycle.
True.
So we need to address all of them for to people to prevent this from happening.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah, so that is a very, very important aspect during these times.
So, have you seen a surge of heart attacks during this time?
In the beginning, there was no surge at all. We dropped
Yeah,
practice by
like you
90%.
mentioned. Yeah.
Oh, it was like where did the heart attacks disappear?
Yeah.
And then we started realizing that people were dying at home, and now we are getting calls regularly. I have chest pain. Like I had a call an hour back that I have chest pain. So I said, "Come to the hospital. I need an ECG." No, I don't want to come to the hospital. I
Right.
said, "How do I see you then?" She said, "I'll go to a local doctor and do an ECG." I said, "Done. Go close by, get an ECG and send it to me." And she sent me the ECG, and she had a heart issue already. So we are calling her to the hospital.
Right.
So I think we need to make the people aware that hospitals are taking care of you. They are trying that the COVID doesn't spread to you. So it's
Yeah.
not that you go to the hospital and you're going to get COVID. So
Right.
that's very, very important. And we need to discuss about heart disease and diabetes a bit because that's
Right.
a common, I think, association. Two-thirds of heart patients do have diabetes, and that's a huge
Yeah.
number.
And if you have diabetes, you have 2 to 4 times likely to get a heart attack than the
Yeah,
non-diabetic people.
right, right.
Right.
So, what's your opinion on diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure? What do you think?
Well, diabetes is one of the prime risk factors for getting heart disease. People don't realize it in the first few years of their diabetes because they don't pay attention because they have no symptoms of diabetes. Diabetes, is a notoriously silent disease. So they can walk about, do their daily activities, even with sugars of 200 and 300 for years together, not realizing that these high blood sugars do not interfere with their daily routine, but it is causing damage to their arteries and causing blocks in their heart. So typically you will find that 10 to 15 years of diabetes and then one fine day a heart attack. That is because years of uncontrolled blood sugars has led to blocks in the arteries that supply the heart, and this comes as a heart attack. So they feel that the heart attack has come in a day. It hasn't come in a day. It has, as built up over the years, and they have had some risk factors, we call them. One of the prime risk factors is diabetes. Another prime risk factor which they neglect, some of them take very good care of their sugars but hardly bother about their blood pressure. And you know that blood pressure is soaring and they're saying नाही नाही आता मी थोडंसं चालून आलो, जरा जास्त फास्ट चालून आलो म्हणून माझी बीपी वाढले. मला बीपी नाही आहे किंवा माझी बीपी नॉर्मल आहे. सो दिस इज व्हॉट पीपल स्टार्ट off that BP is not an issue for me. But then that becomes more important in some people, especially those who are diabetic, because it's a double whammy. They have diabetes and then they have uncontrolled blood pressure. That's a recipe for getting heart disease. There's a direct connection between them, so they have to take care.
Right. So, because whenever we speak to patients, if you ask them, "Are you diabetic?" they say no. They ask them, do you have blood pressure?" They say no. And then when you see their drug chart, they are on diabetic medications and blood pressure medication. So
Yeah.
then you ask them, "What is this?" "Oh, control madhe hai." That
Haan.
they believe if it is in control, I don't have it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's
They,
the usual problem. And diabetes, blood pressure, as you rightfully mentioned, is almost a silent killer.
yes, yes,
But
it
the
is.
important thing people don't realize that both of these are lifestyle diseases which can be prevented, reversed, and controlled.
Absolutely true.
And most of the diseases I feel come from thought. I have a strong belief that we our thought processes bring these disease on us. So we
Yeah.
have to find ways of dealing with these diseases, identifying them in time, and of course, controlling your thoughts is very, very important. So, since I have an issue with diabetic, some questions, because people have this misconception that whenever a diabetic patient goes to a cardiologist, like someone like me, I tell him, after you have heart disease, I'm okay with a little higher sugar, because I don't want lower sugar, right? And he gets confused because my diabetologist told me your sugar has to be low, has to be normal, has to be this, that. I think you need to dispel this thought process in them ki when low sugars are acceptable, when high sugars are acceptable, because it's very, very important for them to know, because they tend to generalize what one doctor says. They don't get into the context of it.
Context, yeah. Well, it is very true that very tight control of blood sugars in the first 10 years is extremely important so that you do not get heart disease or the other problems of diabetes. So the very tight control of blood sugars with an HbA1c, which is the marker for which is the test of a good blood sugar control, that should be at say 6.5 or less than 7, what we call. It is especially true in the first 10 years of disease, because after that, even if you're a little lax, the first 10 years of that good control gives you what we call a good metabolic legacy. So it's called the legacy effect. That is, first 10 years you are really very strict, the foundation of your diabetes is strong, and later on you are kind of protected. Well, to a certain extent, it is true that once you've had an event like a heart attack or a stroke, and if you have some residual defect left like a heart failure, very tight control of 6.5 is not mandatory. You can be 7, 7.5 at that time, especially if you are elderly. If you are young and your arteries and heart is already been taken care of even after a heart attack, then yes, you can be very strict with your blood sugar control. But if you're elderly, you have a little bit of a residual heart failure left over, then rather than very tight blood sugar control, good cover for cholesterol and a good cover for blood pressure might be more important. So it's very individual, Harish. It depends upon what kind of a lifestyle that person is leading, how his heart is doing, how what kind of activity is being allowed for him. Based on that, we decide individual targets.
Yeah, I agree with you, Neeta, that this is a very tailored process. It's like wearing a suit. Every suit
Yes.
is not going to fit everybody.
Yes.
That's why I brought this up, because most patients should not generalize a statement a doctor
Yeah.
makes. The
Yes.
statement
Yes.
he's making is for you. He's
Yes.
not making the statement for all heart patients or all diabetics or all blood pressure patients.
Correct.
So you have to discuss these goals with your doctor for you to understand how am I going to maintain this health.
Right.
That's very, very important. That's what beautifully brought out by you. This problem during the pandemic, you feel that sleep is an issue? Is sleep causing major problems? Lack of sleep, fear of falling asleep, thoughts
Yeah.
during sleep?
It is. First of all, sleep disturbances are not good for diabetics, for anybody, and even for weight loss. Because when you don't sleep well, it is a different form of stress. And when you are stressed, you know that you increase a hormone called cortisol in the body, which is bad for the heart, bad for the blood sugars, and bad for everything. So sleep is important not only for regenerative processes. See, when you're sleeping, your body is repairing all the processes in your body. During the day you undergo a lot of stress internally, and that is being repaired during sleep. So if you don't sleep well, the repair processes are going to be affected. So in that sense, physically you are going to suffer, mentally also you are going to you're going to suffer, and your stresses are going to increase if you do not sleep well. So sleep is of utmost importance, and everyone should try to sleep at least 6 to 8 hours at a stretch during the night. It may be difficult for some, you may need help doing that, but it is important. And if you don't sleep well, your blood pressure also can go up.
Yes. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done.
So, what are your prescriptions for sleep? What do you
Well,
tell
yeah, my prescription for sleep is that,
during this time especially?
in these
During this
times,
time, yeah.
yeah. So avoid any screen time for 2 hours at least before sleep. So if you're watching a screen all the time, if you're watching television, if you're binge watching something, you're not going to fall asleep because you get actively involved, and it's not a good idea to be doing that. Secondly, if you're diabetic or if you have a prostate problem, try not to drink liquids after 7:30, 8 o'clock in the night, so that you don't have to keep getting up to pass urine, which disturbs your sleep. So that's the second thing. And if you have eaten early, you may sleep well, because those who eat late and go to sleep immediately after that could have esophageal reflux, that is acid reflux in your throat, and that could wake you up. So there are many physical things which actually preclude sleep, and at least these things can be, so this is called sleep hygiene. There is something called sleep hygiene, and if you follow a good sleep hygiene, you can read while going to sleep. In fact, that's a good way to fall asleep. But if you're watching a screen before going to sleep, you may not get sleep at all. But there are those people who, despite that, cannot sleep, and some may actually need a mild tranquilizer or a sedative.
Right. Yes, I think the problem during this lockdown has been difficulty to sleep because of fear.
Yeah.
And second has been increased screen time. So you
Yeah.
definitely need a detox from electronic
Right.
gadgets
Right.
and social media, because people are watching Netflix for hours at night, watching serials at a stretch. So that is very, very important. And as you rightfully said, lack of sleep causes lots of problems, including worsening your diabetes, worsening your blood pressure, worsening your heart disease. So one remedy of sleep, which I feel is going to help someone a lot, is I feel, which I have also telling people and experience, is meditation. So meditation induces sleep, but that's not the only benefit of meditation. Do you recommend meditation to your patients?
I do, because there are a lot of people who have not just problems because of COVID or anything. People have economic issues. There are mother-in-law issues, daughter-in-law issues. There are a n number of issues. There is nobody who doesn't have an issue, I think. So what stresses you out is very individual. What stresses one out may not stress another one out, that he may have his own stresses. So because of all these stresses, obviously the one thing that we tell everyone is, you cannot change your environment, but you can change the way you react to that environment. And I think that's where meditation comes in.
Can you you're
Yeah.
over? Avi, can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I don't know, something went off suddenly. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard some sound. Yes.
Right. So yeah, this is very, very important, because I'll give you a small story of how we are different from animals. So if you have ever watched National Geographic channel and you see the wild beast, or a zebra you may call it, or a deer, the pack of them running away from attacking lioness or a tiger, because they're worried that they're going to be eaten up. And in about next half an hour, you will find both of them at the same pond standing next to each other. The reason being that they have a switch off. The moment they face threat, they react. Once the lioness's hunger is gone, the threat perception of the deer is gone, and then they're both together. They're not worried that this is going to happen. But unfortunately, we humans have not got that off switch. We have a problem with that off switch. So once, if you're driving down the road and you had a fight with another driver about what is happening on the street, then you carry that to your work, you carry that home, you carry that to your colleagues, you keep firing people all around, because you've not been able to get off that event that is already over. So we need to get off that event that is over. So I'll speak a little bit of meditation, how it helps, because I've been an avid meditator and it does make a lot of difference. So what meditation does actually is very simple. As you said in the beginning, it connects you to your inner self, which we have forgotten, because our entire life is centered around what people think about us. We have stopped bothering what we think about ourselves. We start living life the way people think about us. What does my boss want me to do? What does my friend want me to do? What does he perceive me as? So that is one major problem we have. And the second major problem we face is that we live between the past and the future. This should not have happened. This should happen. And we lose the moment. And that is the reason that we have all these major diseases, problems, all these things that we have: sleep, diabetes, blood pressure. And what meditation does is gives you your me time, the time which we all claim. Everybody, it's such a big thing. People make money on me time nowadays. Just teach people me time. Me time is meditation. Meditation means connecting with your inner self. The moment you can sit alone, silently in a room, wherever you choose, and try to connect with your inner self, you will start realizing the peace that exists within you. And as you beautifully said, it is difficult to change the environment outside. Like, people talk about world peace, people talk about world health and WHO. How can you have world peace when you are not at peace? How can you even get peace when you are not at peace? So you have to come to terms with yourself. So medically speaking, how meditation helps, we can also speak how it helps spiritually and all that. Medically, if you see people who meditate, and they've done lots of studies on the kind of meditation I do, which is heartfulness. And there is meditation which is called mindfulness also, which is very, very famous. It has proved that people who meditate generally have a lower pulse rate than someone else. They have a lower blood pressure. They have better controlled sugar. They have better controlled cholesterol levels. And if they have existing heart disease, they have less chance of developing a second heart disease. They have less chance of developing heart failure. And they generally outlive people who don't meditate. So the physical benefits are very, very evident. And the reason people don't meditate is that we feel that, what is the tangible benefit do I get? Why should I meditate? I don't gain anything out of that. And also, we have this concept that meditation should start when you're old, when you're retired.
Right.
But the maximum stressful period is when you are working. And that is the time I feel you need meditation the most. Because if you don't, as Neeta told you, if you don't sleep well, you don't take care of your stresses and fears and anxieties, how are you going to be healthy? And if you are not healthy, then what is going to suffer if you are not healthy? If your health is not good, you will spend more on doctors, spend more on medication, spend more on hospitalization. So your earning may remain the same, your expenditures keep going up. But if you are someone who's been into this meditation part, I'm not talking about spirituality. Let's not go to spirituality, because that's a different realm itself. But if you are meditating, you will automatically realize that you have more time for yourself. So if you have more time for yourself, you have more time to spend on your work. And if you generally work more than anybody else with more focus, because if you get more focused with meditation, you're going to earn more. So you're going to earn more, you're going to live more, you're going to spend less. So it is tangible benefit. It's a win-win situation. The only difference is, it's not like insulin. That if I give you insulin, your sugar will drop from 300 to 100. But what this will do, it will prevent your sugar from going to 300 to get your insulin there. So I'm not here trying to say that don't take medicines, don't go to doctors, don't take diabetic medicine, don't take blood pressure medicine. That's a misconception. Doctor is extremely important to guide you through your disease process. But meditation is your effort in addition to exercise and other means that Dr. Neeta spoke about, your diet and all that, which will help you regulate. And meditation also helps in reduction of weight. It's a very controversial.
No, it's
Subject.
not, Harish, actually,
Yeah.
because when you meditate and you're quiet and you're peaceful, your cortisol levels will go down. And when cortisol goes down, then you don't lay down that much fat. So it's
Yeah.
important.
And once you sleep well at night with meditation,
Yeah.
you sleep like a baby. That is guaranteed. You can sleep without this. And you enter the deep stage of sleep within a few minutes. So if you can reach a deep stage of sleep where your organs are repairing, you're doing well so fast, you are definitely going to benefit in the long term. There is no question about that. So meditation has huge benefits, especially during these times, which is going to give you multifactorial benefits. But be aware that it's not only meditation that's going to help you. You have to be maintaining your exercise schedule. You have to maintain your medicine schedule. And of course, with reduction of medicines, you can speak to your doctor before reducing your medicines. So these are very, very important issues that we need to deal during these times. And Neeta, of course, meditation is one way. I feel that people need to seek more help from other people. We need to get more active in seeking help when we are in trouble.
Right,
Would you
right.
agree, Neeta?
I agree fully because people hesitate a lot, kind of ignore it, think that it'll get better. Let me watch. Let me see for 2, 3 days more. Like it's typically, when people come with blood sugars that are in the range of 300, and I tell them that you probably need another drug or you may need insulin. No, I'll watch for 1 more month. So this is the standard reply that you get, and I find that that is not right, because a decision that has to be taken, if it is not taken at the right time, it's a wrong decision or it's a bad decision. So it's always not just the decision, the content of the decision, it is also the timing of the decision that is key in all these chronic disorders. If you act at the right time in the right way, you're going to get the maximum benefit. It's like, somebody at the level of angina, you do a stenting, that person is not going to lose part of his heart. If you do the same stenting after he's already had a heart attack, that much part of his heart is never going to work and you're going to get those wall motion defects, right?
Yeah,
So at the level of angina, you still haven't lost anything. So it's like that.
right.
So you
Yeah.
act at the right time.
So what I meant about help was also that in these stressful times, reach out to your friends, reach out to
Reach
your
out.
family.
Yes.
Don't stay alone. Don't say, "Ki, I can deal with this alone." If you
Yeah.
get a feeling that I can't deal with this alone, please talk to your friend, talk to your colleague, talk to
Right.
your
Right.
parents. And this is the best time to connect
This is
because
correct.
you will never have this time again.
I'll
I'm
tell
telling
you
you.
another paradox to this,
Yeah.
Harish, to this kind of a stress. Connecting with friends, connecting with your doctors is extremely important on a very physical level. But what I have found, not only in these times, but at other times, and I'm not the first person to be saying this, but at a slightly higher, maybe like you could say it's at a spiritual level, a certain sense of detachment is very important.
Yep.
And if you don't have that sense, if you get too involved into everything and don't have that small degree of detachment, you are in for trouble. So if you can practice that sense of detachment in general towards everything and everybody, you are definitely going to be at a happier place, is what I feel.
That's beautiful. That's exactly what meditation does.
Yeah,
So you are detachedly attached. So you have
absolutely.
to be there and yet be alone. So
Be
you
alone.
can be alone despite being with people and be
Absolutely.
happy. That's very, very important. And as you said, reaching out to people is should not be a shame. You shouldn't worry about that. I'm
Correct.
very fearful of talking about my problems. These are my fears. I
Correct.
think if you can't handle your fears, you need to discuss your fears, and that will reduce the risk
Right.
of your diseases and of course the risk of suicides, which we see nowadays, because they
Yeah.
probably didn't sort their problem with people. Deal something which is an evolving process,
Yes.
It
Yes.
doesn't happen in one day. So if you want to deal with acute problems, obviously you need to reach out to people and talk to them what is happening.
Right.
This is very, very important. So this, I think, was a very important message of this webinar is that health in this form is about diabetes, it's not about blood pressure, it's not only about heart disease. It's about generally maintain your health, which directly and indirectly will help you get your diabetes better or your blood pressure better or your reduction of your heart
Yeah.
diseases. Is there anything, Neeta, you want to talk about, add, ask?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything quite comprehensively, and I'm hoping that our audience is going to have some good takeaways from this, and maybe we can entertain any questions that come up after the
Yeah,
after it has
yeah.
been telecast.
So
Yes,
we can always answer them back.
yes, of course,
So
of
would
course.
you want to leave people with a message here? I mean, what should they be doing right now?
Well,
Anything
the
that's
message,
very
the
important.
only message that I can give is do not be scared. Be very aware of what you're doing. Take all the precautions, take all the care that you can possibly take, and leave the rest to your, I wouldn't say destiny because that's not a nice thing to say, but I would say that you just do what you can best in the most logical and the best way possible. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Very beautifully said, Neeta, and I like that hold to the thought of awareness. It's very, very important that you need awareness. Awareness is not only awareness of your disease process around other
Yeah.
surroundings. It is awareness within yourself that is very, very important.
Right.
You have to be self-aware. And that is again where meditation expands your awareness. It gets you
Right.
more and more aware of things, and your intuitive ability increases. So you can sense things before they are going to happen.
Right.
And Destiny very beautifully said, our guide, spiritual guide of Heartfulness movement, Dr. Kamlesh Patel, he says that you can design your
Yes.
destiny. So never say that it's going to be destined to happen like this.
That's why I stopped short there.
Yes, beautifully said. Because there is something called genetics and there's something called epigenetics. He always
Yeah.
keeps talking. You said that change the environment, you can't change the environment. But when you give some positive signal to the universe or you change yourself, you will automatically see that the environment around you starts changing. So
Starts to
you
change.
attract those kind of people that are important for your kind of life.
Right.
And that is very, very important in today's times. So
Right.
don't give hope. I would say live each day as it comes. Live for the day, live for the moment. Forget about tomorrow. Because I'm being sort of blasphemous. Even God does not know what is tomorrow.
Right.
So
So
might as
true.
well live for now.
Yeah.
That's my message for all of you all.
Right.
And of course, don't ignore your symptoms. Don't ignore it. Don't leave it for tomorrow. Thank you,
Right.
Neeta. It was a beautiful
Thank you. Yes, it was a
time
lovely
chatting with
morning.
you.
Thank you.
And thank you again. And we will talk to you about this in future. We have many more webinars of this kind.
Sure.
And
Sure.
for
Definitely.
viewers who are interested in meditation, we have our website, which is called www.heartfulness.org. We also have a app for Android and iPhone, Apple, which is called the Hearts app, which you can download, and you can take free master classes of meditation, which you can do online, either on your PC or on your phone. And in fact, we have lots of webinars happening besides Heartfulness Wellness webinars. We have Glow webinars. We have lots of things happening around this meditation movement of ours and wellness movement of ours. If you need any more information, feel free to write to us, message us, and we will get back to you. And looking forward to meeting you again, Neeta. Good to see you.
Yes. Same here.
Thank
Nice.
you.
It's been a nice morning. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.